Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗂. We're only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by Botánica candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button and push that like button. What's up, Phil?
Hey, happy Sunday, man. You doing well?
Happy Sunday, brother. Everything's good. Everything's good. How about you?
Doing well. I love that shiny plaque you got back there.
The baton?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the accolades again.
Yeah, it's nice every time, walking in here and seeing it just glimmer in these flashing lights. It's definitely a humble reminder of all the work we put in and how much work we're going to keep putting in. So, man, once again, congratulations to us.
Yeah, well, speaking of work, what are we doing today, man?
Today, we're going to be continuing with our Meji series with the Ojuani Meji. And Ojuani Meji occupies the 6th spot within the Mejis of the first 16, right? So, like all of the Mejis, bunch of information for sure. And we're going to go ahead and delve into 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁, kind of, looking at all of the various aspects of this character's personality, right?
Before you continue with that, I do want to give you some props. The way that you tell stories.
Thank you.
And I'm sure people in the comments, comment below if you agree with what I'm about to say. The way that you tell stories, I can visually see them in my head.
Wow.
So props to that. I wish I knew how to animate, because I would animate your patakis.
Sure. Well,
and then we could make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the way you tell stories. They have a great beginning, middle, and end, and I love cutting the clips out.
Well, definitely, trying to be the Morgan Freeman of this, you know what I'm saying? So just having a voice and being able to relay this information in a way where it's digestible. We talk about this information being thousands of years old and still relatable till this day. It's something that, it takes a certain nuance and delicateness, simply because you want to make sure that you're getting all the points across in a way where people actually understand it. Because 𝗃𝗏, one of the biggest complaints about some of the people starting in 𝗃𝗏 is, how do I study it? Not really understanding all that, is coming with it. And apart from that, the interpretation of it. So just trying to relate it in a way where, the modern person could be like, yeah, I could see how that could transpire within a real life situation. Because if you look at the 𝗃𝗏s went through everything that we go through every day. And, sometimes it was spicy, sometimes it was epic, sometimes it was sad, sometimes it was happy and memorable. And it's taken a long time to get to a point to be able to, digest it and then, put it back out in a way where people can fully understand. So Thank you. Definitely. And thank you to everybody that thinks that. So Ojuani Meji. This Odu, I enjoyed studying it thoroughly, like I enjoyed all of the Mejis. But this Odu has some really classic and famous stories. And one of them is the famous story as to why the lizard has the red extension in his neck. When we look at this Odu, the Orisha Shango became very enamored with the Orisha Oya. And he wanted to court her and marry her, and he wanted to basically make her one of his wives, right? Concubines, however you wanted to define her. And he was a little bit nervous because he knew that Oya was a very intense woman, and he really didn't want to go through any of the emotions that are associated with rejection. So he kind of got scared, and he put his best friend, 𝗃𝗏𝗍, or 𝗃𝗏𝗍, depending on how you say it, the lizard, to take the wedding ring to propose, right? Now, some people say it was a ring, some people say it was a gemstone, but at the end of the day, it was red. It was like this beautiful red ruby or something of that, infrared hue. So the lizard, acted as a liaison between Shango and Oya, and being that he couldn't walk and hold things at the same time, he put the ruby in his mouth. And Shango said, hey, get over there as quickly as possible and tell her how I feel and, give her the ring and see what she says. Shango really wasn't doing the lizard any favors either, because, if Oya didn't like the request, she might kill the lizard. She might throw a lightning bolt at him, light him on fire. It's pretty horrible. But the lizard, being blinded by his friendship to Shango and loyalty to Shango, he says, sure, I'll do this for you. And in reality, Shango should have been doing it himself. Whenever you're asking a woman to spend the rest of their life with you, it comes with some risk, because there is always that possibility of that 2-letter word, right?
Yeah.
So the lizard, wanting to impress Shango, didn't listen to Orunmila. When the 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗲 Meji was revealed to him, where Orunmila told him to take things at a pace, he actually told the lizard altogether, don't help anybody, but the lizard didn't listen because he was trying to impress the king. And he started running to Oya's home. And of course, along the way, 𝗀𝗲𝗃, in the form of a rock, actually forced or caused the lizard to fall, right, or trip. And because of it, he actually swallowed the ruby, and it got caught in his throat.
Oh,
right?
no.
So when this happened, he couldn't explain what happened. He wasn't going to go to Oya's house empty-handed. He wasn't going to go back to Shango's palace and speak of his failure. So he said, I'm just going to go hide. And where did he hide? He hid in the palm tree. And he went up the palm tree and hid amongst the thistles and whatnot, and just stood there waiting for the repercussions. So one day, Shango, big king, wanted to go through the marketplace and stunt a little bit, and he saw Oya in the marketplace because she was always there selling something or, just flaunting. And he went up to her. He said, you didn't like my ring? You didn't like my gemstone, my ruby? She said, you haven't gifted me anything, Your Highness. He said, the lizard didn't come and visit you? She said, no, he never came to my house. But if you had something you wanted to give me, you should have had the courage to come and give it to me personally. So Shango went through the embarrassment anyway. He really didn't care, though. He kept trying to holla at her, and it ended up working. But at the end of the day, he was like, wow, the lizard betrayed me. So he was looking for the lizard, and he remembered that him and the lizard would always hang out in the palm tree, or 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏. And when he looked in the palm tree, he saw the lizard, and the lizard, out of fear, basically the reaction of his nervous system caused his throat to extend. And Shango thought he was mocking him by saying, yeah, I got your gemstone, your lady never got it, It got a little gangster. And Shango threw a lightning bolt at the palm tree trying to kill the lizard. And that's why, because of this story, and still to this day, there's a couple things that we can still visibly see in nature. The first one being the courting ritual of the lizard and its mate. Now, when we talk about which lizard, the one that, at least within Lukumi, is associated with it is, I believe, the green, or the Cuban green 𝗀𝗏, as it's known. And it's this beautiful, slender green lizard. It's so gorgeous. And it actually extends its neck. And for all the Floridians that are watching this, or anybody else that has the random lizard running around your property, you could see this when the males, enter into, the courtship, they start extending their neck. And this is actually a metaphor for when Shango tried to court Oya, being that the lizard is actually one of the animals affiliated and associated with Shango. So that's one thing. Another thing you're going to notice from this 𝗃𝗏𝗃 is lizards are always in palm trees, right? And it's because of this one as well. And it's why lightning always strikes palm trees. Shango has everything to do with this 𝗀𝗲𝗃. So if we look at the moral of this story, ultimately, 𝗲 says that from a Shango standpoint, the person has to have courage. They have to have maturity. They have to understand that just because things might not go their way doesn't mean they shouldn't attempt them at all. In reality, I think that the beginning of their relationship ultimately reflected the end, because Shango and Oya never really got on the same page. They were very passionate. They loved each other intensely, but they can never really get any momentum behind their relationship because Shango was a little bit immature and Oya was a little bit too fierce. A
little bit immature.
Yeah, she was a firecracker for sure, and Shango couldn't handle her. It kind of was the beginning of the end from the very beginning, being that he didn't do the formal proposal. She never really forgave him for that. But he was a good-looking guy, so she kind of ignored it for a while. So it speaks of the importance of assuming those roles and understanding things might not go our way, but we still have to follow through with them as men and adults. When we look at the lizard, though, there's a really resounding message here is we have to know when to help or when we can't help. It would have been better for the lizard to say, hey, Shango, it's better if you give that to Oya. It's a more personal experience. You're literally trying to marry the woman. I shouldn't be, an intermediary there. It might cause, if he was really his friend, and the lizard was, it was just that Shango didn't like anybody but yes men around him. He was somebody that always wanted to be agreed with. So this 𝗀𝗲𝗃, it's very important that the person understands when somebody really cares about you, they're capable of telling you where you could have done better. And that's really important in adulthood, is being able to take criticism constructively to be able to better oneself. And Shango had to learn that in this 𝗀𝗲𝗃. And then, when we look at Oya, it's always important for roles, right? And Oya, the reason she became so intense or so frustrated with Shango is because she felt like she couldn't trust him. Being that he didn't take, the humility to be able to propose accordingly and follow through with courtship, she never fully trusted him. She never fully entrusted his ability to protect or provide for that home. So, it was just kind of the beginning of the end. But, there's a bunch of great pataquis that came from their relationship, and it really started here. This is really the 𝗀𝗲𝗿 where Shango and Oya really started dating and, getting married, or however you want to interpret it, because technically Oya was still married when this all happened, so Shango was a little bit fresh. But, imagine that one animated, right?
Yeah.
So when we look at the theme of Shango once more, there's a very interesting plant that's in this 𝗀𝗲𝗿, Phil, and you've seen Harry Potter, I'm sure.
You know what? I was not allowed to watch Harry Potter as a younger person because the Baptist family.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like, oh, it's the devil.
Sure.
But
yeah.
I watched it as a little bit older, but I don't really remember much of it.
Fabulous films. I'm a huge fan. I don't get to watch it as much as I like, or I used to, but I think as the kids get a little bit older, I'll be able to introduce it to them. And I think overall they were great films and amazing books. But there's actually a plant that's in this 𝗀𝗲𝗿 that's in the books, and it's the mandrake. So when Harry starts, I think it's botany class or herbology, however they call it in the movie, one of the first classes is actually with the mandrake. And if you look at the movie, he pulls the mandrake out of the ground and it starts screaming.
Oh.
So in Spanish, we call it la mandragora. And in this 𝗀𝗲𝗿, it speaks of when the mandrake was the son of Shango, or the son of the devil, as it was known. And this plant, it doesn't literally have eyes and scream like in the movie, but it actually makes a noise. It actually has certain qualities that are a little, phenomenal, right? So this plant has a story in this 𝗀𝗲𝗿, and the mandrake was a plant that was repudiated immediately within nature. It was misunderstood. It was mistreated. And, it really didn't understand why. It was kind of born under these conditions and, had to deal with so much adversity initially. And he started, rebelling. He started becoming aggressive and attacking and, becoming a real nuisance to the community. And what people didn't know was that he was ultimately a son of Shango. So Shango went to speak to his son to kind of understand why his behavior was the way it was. And the mandrake said, well, people don't like me. People judge me based on the way I look. I never did anything to anybody. And from the very beginning, there's been opposition. So I don't know how to, deal with this other than to, lash out because I'm constantly being oppressed. And he said, well, let's go visit your uncle Orunmila. And when the mandrake went for divination, 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏 Meji was revealed, where Ifa prescribed 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏 and, tried to educate the mandrake as far as how to socialize and interact in a way where it wouldn't create enemies or constantly be in conflict. Shango blessed him, and told him, you have my backing to defend yourself. Try not to offend, try not to cause war, but if war arrives upon you, please be decisive, in your actions so that it can end quickly, however, or whoever you have to eliminate in the process. So this is known as the 𝗀𝗲𝗿 of the mandrake, where it was basically a plant that became exclusive to Shango. And now some people go as far to say it belongs to 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏. This is also an 𝗀𝗲𝗿 that speaks of that concept as well, and I'll go into it briefly. The concept of 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏 is basically the Afro-Cuban Lukumi Santeria Ifa's version of Satan, or the devil, right? It's seen as something that is innately evil. I know various brothers that have this deity. And mind you, it's one that's usually not used for positivity. The person that really introduced it to the community at large was, I believe, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏. May he rest in peace. So it's one that, is identified as being used for very nefarious things. Now, the concept of 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏 is debatable because some people say it's Shango after a certain time in the wee hours of the morning. Some people say it's 𝗀𝗏𝗄 all the time. Some people say it's a mixture of all three. But it is interesting that the mandrake was seen as the son of the devil or the son of Shango, depending on how Shango woke up that morning. So, we have a herb series as well within our membership program, but it is an interesting plant to talk about right now because it can be used for very negative things. Just like the lizard in this 𝗀𝗲𝗿 can be used for very negative things. And we'll get into stories about the lizard and whatnot and the role he kind of plays here. But if we interpret 𝗃𝗏, and we look at the message here, ultimately the person with the initiatory Odu of Ojuani Meji may be socially adverse, right? Not because they've done anything. Unfortunately, Ojuani Meji says the person came not cursed to earth, but they're going to basically, encounter a lot of obstacles initially. And it can make them socially adverse, where it might be difficult to make friends, socialize, or interact, because for some reason spiritually, and this is why spiritual alignment is so important in this Odu, people are going to, basically misjudge them, prematurely. And because of it, it could cause frustration between the person and their community. So Ojuani Meji speaks of the importance of understanding, what we can work on to better ourselves, but also beginning to understand what we're unable to change. And, that's part of what makes everybody unique. This Odu has a message that basically says, the people that are for you and you for them, you're going to get along. The ones that are not, you're not compatible. Just like, from a romantic standpoint, not everybody's compatible. It's the same thing with society. You're not going to get along with everybody you meet, but we do need to be cordial to be able to, persist upon life. So it basically talks about that, where, if a child has this Odu, it can be interpreted a certain way. God forbid bullying or any of those things happen, or even as an adult, it can happen, So there's remedies for all those things here. And Shango, once again, playing a huge role in this Odu, and he dominates it for the most part. So yeah, the Mandrake, it's a great scene in the movie. I recommend looking at it on YouTube or whatnot. I remember when I was studying 𝗃𝗏 and I watched the movie again and I saw that, it was ironic because I was studying Ojuani Meji at the time. And when I saw that scene, I said, oh my God, what a great visual for, this concept. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So when we talk about Ojuani Meji as well, kind of sticking with the reptilian concept, because believe it or not, this Odu actually speaks of the dinosaurs, right? Now, I'm not speaking so much from a Jurassic Park standpoint. It's not that, not that much fantasy, even though obviously if you can interpret it all the way back, sure. But this is the Odu of the reptiles. Another Odu that speaks of it as well is 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗏. And basically it speaks of the de-evolution of dinosaurs into the modern day reptile, whether it be the crocodile, which is pretty unevolved. It's pretty much the same that it's been, on a much smaller scale, possibly because they've been finding a couple huge ones lately. Things like the Komodo dragon, even the chameleon to a certain degree. When we look back to 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍, it says that the chameleon was the first animal ultimately to touch landmass, right? To be able to check it for its stability, and that's why he walks with so much caution. But in this Odu, the chameleon was known as 𝗃𝗏𝗏, right? And he was a babalawo. Some people say he was the personal son of Orunmila or 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏, or Mo 𝗃𝗶𝗏. And he started out great, learned 𝗃𝗏, humble, really liked, etc. But with time, unfortunately, arrogance grew within his heart. And 𝘃𝗏 started noticing it like he always does, and, started telling some of the deities that be, and really wanted to put him to the test, because he noticed that 𝗃𝗏𝗏 would become frustrated with his peers and just do witchcraft to them, And sometimes he was greatly debilitating them, or injuring them. And, 𝗃𝗏 and everybody tried to advise him, etc., and he went to visit Orunmila to get some clarity, where Orunmila said this was taboo. When we speak of concept like Ogu or Abilu or witchcraft, it's ultimately taboo. Regardless of whatever's occurred, if you choose to partake in that behavior, there will always be karmic repercussions, right? At the end of the day, if you shoot a gun to defend yourself, unfortunately, you're still going to jail somehow. There's still a due process.
Right.
So the universe and nature are no different. So when Orunmila told the chameleon to take the higher path on situations, the chameleon just couldn't do it. He had too much rage ultimately. And one day he had a situation where he felt like somebody slighted him or didn't give him the proper acknowledgement. He was very emotional, and he decided to do witchcraft. And him forgetting his habits, he forgot to wash his hands and cleanse himself afterwards, because that's a huge thing. If you are going to perform anything like that, obviously you need to have good hygiene. And he didn't. And he was actually set to interact with his mother that night. He was going to have dinner at his mom's house. And when he showed up to his mom's house and he embraced her, the witchcraft that was left on his hands penetrated his mother's skin and killed her.
Oh, no.
So at that moment, he looked at her and he looked at his hands and he kind of realized, he killed his mom inadvertently. So, he started screaming and flipping out, and 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 and Orunmila showed up and they said, what happened? He said, my mother's dead. And they said, well, how many other mothers did you kill? How many sons did you kill? How many people did you hurt? And the chameleon had to deal with that. That's why if you look at the chameleon now, it's kind of bugged out. Its eyes are always all over the place. It's paranoid. It's not really an affable animal. It's not one that you can necessarily pet. I mean, it's actually pretty vicious. If you look at some of the the triceratops one, they're really aggressive animals, and it actually comes from this 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀. The character of the chameleon was born in Ojuani Meji because he had to deal with the depression and frustration of actually having caused his mother's death. So when we look at this 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀, once again, really great message. We have to learn how to handle situations as spiritual professionals or people with maturity and conversation, rather than wanting to get emotional and just throw witchcraft all the time. Or immediately blame spirituality for our problems. The chameleon here failed to realize that his behavior and character was what was causing all of his ailments, right? And rather than taking the time and energy and maturity to work on himself, he decided to take the easy way out and just start shooting. But he didn't realize that through that behavior, he lost that which was most dear to him, which was his mother. So it's a message for all of us to understand that when a spiritual war begins, like all war, for it to end, someone has to go. So this 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗏 states that we have to be very careful and avoid that at all costs, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect us negatively somehow, whether we're in the right or the wrong, right? So really sad story there. It speaks of the importance of spiritual hygiene, etc., and just some interesting stuff about the chameleon in general. Ojuani Meji, when we look at Ifa and how we're identifiable, I'm not sure if we've come out with that episode at this point, whenever this one comes out, but we did Ifa and fashion. And one of the most recognizable things about us is the beads, right? And in Ojuani Meji is actually where the necklace, or 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏 Ifa, was first manifested, right? The ide is more in the 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗏, like 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏, 𝗵𝗏𝗍𝗏 Meji, 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 has a verse as well, and 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏𝗏, of course, which is the one that the Afro-Cuban practice bases itself upon. But in this 𝗀𝗲𝗿, people, use the defa, right, or the bracelet of Ifa only. And it's true, people weren't dying, but people were still getting sick. And obviously sickness or deterioration leads to death or lack of function. That's why 𝗃𝗀 and 𝗵𝗏 are married in the 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗏, which 𝗃𝗀 is death, 𝗵𝗏 is sickness, for those that are able to translate. And they needed another level of defense. So they went running to Orunmila and they said, Baba, we're not dying. Like, she can't just come and eat us like that. But, we're getting sick. So death's partner, 𝗵𝗏, was penetrating into the bodies of people and causing sickness to facilitate death, being that she couldn't do it directly from a predestined standpoint. So Orunmila realized the scheme that the Ajogun or the Ayewos were concocting and said, all right, we might need something a little more intense to kind of give a more well-rounded defense mechanism. And originally 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏 was known as 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, which means the big ide. And he put it around the neck. And when 𝗵𝗏 tried to penetrate into the body, it could not. So it provided another level of defense, where via that one is actually where we get the waist beads, the fertility beads. Sometimes you'll see people having ide on their ankle. Sometimes I wear it on my ankle or whatnot when I just don't want to be kind of visible. I really don't want the conversation starter of the ide, because sometimes it is. And they got great results from it. So Ojuani Meji is where actually the 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏 Ifa first manifested. Now, for someone with hand of Ifa, you're going to notice that it'll usually end around the sternum somewhere. But when you see the traditional brothers, especially over there in Nigeria, their 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏, representing them as Babalawo, goes all the way down to like their stomach, like the concept Obeyono says. So this 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗏, for anybody that's revealed this 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗏, even in consultation, ultimately it's recommending that the person make their way towards their hand of Ifa, or if they already are initiated in that, or possibly Orisha, they might have the path to become Babalawo, or anything that has to do with their paraphernalia, because some of it might be outdated from an energetic standpoint. It might be nice to wash it again. Maybe it's kind of loose. Maybe you want to get a new one. But ultimately, it's making reference to that somehow. So it's very important to have your things on in this Odu. I have heard as well, and I don't know, and you know, some people say it's all the Mejis. I've heard Ojuani Meji, I've heard of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏, I've heard of 𝘄cie Meji. But like for the people who have hand of Ifa, usually the people who have received it, that have Mejis, they'll use a 2-strand day. Not as big as the Babalawos, but not as thin, obviously, as the people who are Omolodu. So I have heard that Ojuani Meji is the actual Odu where that is, but it's debatable. So very important for you to be using your religious paraphernalia to protect against these random phenomenons, because it's really wild how the flu could complicate into something that is uncurable. So it's very important to pay attention to health and avoiding situations so that we don't have to use extreme measures to preserve ourselves.
Okay.
Babao Ojuani Meji. This Odu speaks heavily of the Orisha Babaluaye. And in this sign, it speaks of a war that was occurring. The war was between Aparo, the quail, and Etu, which was the guinea fowl or hen, which, to be frank with you, is the animal I appreciate the least in all of nature. Have you ever interacted with one of these, Phil?
A quail?
A guinea hen.
A guinea hen, no.
Yeah, for all the brothers and sisters that actually practice and interact with animals or involved in ebo and things like that, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you ever get the chance, Phil, just looking at it can give you nightmares.
Okay, is it like a pigeon? Like
it's really a mutant of an animal. God forgive me. It has like a hornbill on top, like a chichong, as we would like to say.
What's it called again?
A guinea. Guinea, I believe. It's a guinea hen or a guinea fowl.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. But I mean, it's actually a really incredible animal because it's aggressive. It protects its young. It protects its nest. It's very similar to the quail, but the quail doesn't have the physical capacity that a guinea hen does. Like, if I had to equate it to anything, the guinea hen is like a velociraptor with feathers, basically.
The first question on Google, you know how Google has like random questions about what you just typed in?
Yeah.
Is what's the purpose of a guinea hen?
Yeah, right. What's the purpose? We feed it to the Orishas, right? We should throw that into the algorithm. But these two birds ended up having a quarrel. And it's pretty wild to think, that this war was really, bringing Earth to the brink of destruction. But I guess a couple, thousands of years ago, maybe there wasn't as much going on. And the quails and the guinea hens were going to war. And Olodumare realized that things were getting a little out of control, because it was unproductive. People weren't having the same protein sources. There was excrement everywhere. It was really annoying. It was wild. It was deadly. So he looked for any Orisha that would be willing to go down and mediate it, or possibly just, exterminate the leaders of the two armies to be able to have a peace summit, to be able to come to a truce, kind of like Versailles. And the only Orisha that came forward was Babaluaye. And he said, I'll handle it pretty quickly. And Olodumare told him, he said, hey, you have courage. I know you're a warrior, you're a hunter, all of these different things. But you need to be very careful because these animals, they don't play fair, and there's a large quantity, and you have to be very decisive and eliminate the threat quickly, because if not, you're going to lose. And Babaluaye took the advice, visited Orunmila, and when they did divination, Baba Ojuani Meji was revealed, where Ifa told Obaluaye to perform sacrifice with straw and rope and cowrie shells and all these different things, and from it manifested what is known as the Ha of San Lázaro, or Babaluaye. And the Ha, or Ja, depending on how you want to pronounce it, is basically Babaluaye's broom. Now, most people don't actually know why this comes with Babaluaye, Nana, Nanu, however, you want to identify his family. But it actually was originally his first weapon, or represents his sword, right? So when he had this in hand, Orunmila told him, use this and you'll be fine, but use it quickly. Don't give them he who hits first hits best. So make sure you get the first hit on both of them, because if not, it won't matter what you do. The witchcraft's going to be too intense. So the day came when the guinea hens and the quails were going to meet kind of like Braveheart style. We're going to meet for war. And there was no peace treaty. There was no truce. They were going to fight to the death. No prisoners. It was an all-out free-for-all. And at the moment when they were charging each other, where they were about to meet in the middle of the battlefield, 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 came down from heaven yelling 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, which actually makes reference to smallpox and measles. It's actually a word that shouldn't be used too much because it says it calls the negative aspect of that energy. And when he came crashing down from heaven, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So the guinea hen and the quail, they decided to try to defecate on 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 or throw their excrement on him, which, was spiritually charged. And he evaded it. And as he was crashing down, he tapped each of them on the head with the 𝗃. And when he did that, they were paralyzed and stunned. And he actually ripped off both of their heads and drank their blood in front of all the armies. So when they saw that, everybody bowed. They were like, all right, you just took out our generals, our kings. So we bow to you. And what 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 did was he actually took the feathers and put it on the 𝗃 as a commemoration of when he first ate guinea fowl and quail. So, and at that moment, his name turned from 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 into 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶. They literally named him king of the world, which is what 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 means. And with that, those became basically his preferred sources of protein, where till this day, you really can't do much with him from a consecratory standpoint without those animals. So if we look at that, most people don't know why that implement is next to 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶. It's because in the Odu Baba Ojuani Meji, it was his weapon, where, there's a certain reenactment that occurs when you're going to feed 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶. 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 has to be one of those deities that has the most nuances and details when it comes to feeding him, because the moyuba is done a certain way. There's certain liquids that are omitted or incorporated. The animals, everything has a due process, and all of those things actually manifest in Baba Ojuani Meji. I mean, if we really look at the Bataki, technically, even though the Afro-Cuban Lukumi system says 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗲 or 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍 is where 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 y Saraye or came down from heaven, if we really look, Ojuani Meji is really, really, really the first time. Because 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗲, it may speak of him, but it doesn't give the story like Baba Ojuani Meji does. So, both of them should be held in that regard. But the message, I mean, if you look at the Pataki, 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 was pretty incredible, because where all the other Orishas really didn't want no smoke, 𝗹𝗶𝗸 was ready for all the pressure. So, but once again, he went and visited Orunmila first. He wasn't arrogant. He said, I can't just underestimate these two birds because they're a portion of my size. There has to be something going on here, subliminally, that is giving them an advantage to the point where they're bringing Earth to the brink of chaos, So with that, he was able not only to show an amazing win on his record, but assume his position of king on Earth, So very special Orisha with a very special story. So Baba Ojuani Meji, definitely 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶 plays a huge role.
Nice.
Yeah. Baba Ojuani Meji. This Odu speaks a lot about another animal that most people are fond of. I know I'm fond of them, the cat, right? Or ologbo. And in this Odu, it speaks of the white cat specifically. However you want to term him, 𝗹𝗶𝗹𝗁 or 𝗹𝗶𝗶𝗋. And he was being mistreated, because he wasn't, he was a street cat, but he didn't look like the other street cats. You had black cats, gray cats, the calicos. And they looked at him because he was so beautiful and all white. They underestimated him, or they were always trying to gang up on him and whatnot. And he was really tired of it. He had a couple scrapes. He didn't lose, but, he was just tired of fighting altogether. And he was really frustrated with, the ambiance. And he kind of wanted to, kick rocks. He really didn't want to deal with people no more. So he went for divination with Orunmila to see how he could be blessed in a way where he wouldn't have to fight every day, where he wouldn't have to struggle for survival, where he wouldn't have to, go to war all the time. And when Baba Ojuani Meji was revealed in his initiation, because Baba Ojuani Meji is actually one of the Odus where the cat became a babalawo, it showed that he needed to perform sacrifice to Oduduwa and 𝗿𝗏𝗍𝗲. And when he did that, they basically presented themselves. I believe Shango was there as well. And he explained all that he was going through, and they really felt sentiment for him. And they decided to bless him, and they say that that's really when the cat turned completely white, brilliantly, gloriously. They placed the white cloth on him, and they said, you'll always have our blessing. You'll always fall on your feet. You'll have as many lives as you need. You'll always find a way and survive. And apart from that, we don't want you in the street no more. We want you in the house. So that's why in this Odu, the all-white cat, you usually see him inside the house. You remember, what was a Snowball from Stuart Little? It was kind of like that, it's where 𝗿𝗏𝗍𝗲 and Odua said that the white cat should go in the house. So
that's also the name of the Simpsons cat.
Was it Snowball?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sure that was a lawsuit.
I'm pretty sure it was Snowball. Yeah. They never showed the cat, but they had a cat.
Remember Ace Ventura? Snowflake. And the white cat was allowed to go into the house, because he was blessed by the white cloth of 𝗿𝗏𝗍𝗲 and Oduduwa. There's a theme in this Odu where Ojuani Meji, unfortunately, at least initially, is going to have issues socially. It's not that they're not going to have charisma. It's not that they're not going to be desired, but there's going to be certain aspects of their character or the demographic that they're born in where they're going to find contention. Ifa says that, fighting and having conflict in those things is going to be counterproductive. We have to learn how to be political. We have to be regal. We have to speak well. We have to know how to articulate a point in a way that doesn't insult others. And that really is an art, to be able to get your point across without it being too pointy and hurting somebody else. And the white cat went through that in this Odu, but through Ifa, and through the support of Ifa and Orisha and listening to the advice and providing the appropriate sacrifices, he was able to lead a beautiful life, kind of. Remember my cat, Finley?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a Siberian, so he might be Ojuani Meji, but he definitely lives that. So, it's a beautiful story about the feline.
You guys in the chat there, you guys a fan of cats? Because
I'm a cat guy.
I've started to like cats. I've normally just been a big dog person.
No, I've always been afraid of dogs, to be frank with you.
There's a cat that I like. Have you ever heard of a Maine Coon?
Oh, yeah, but the Siberian is part of the Maine Coon family. It's a small Maine Coon.
Oh.
That's why Finley's so fluffy, he's so beefy.
Yeah, okay.
But he's such a sweetheart. He's a dog in a cat's body.
Yeah, I like the Maine Coons.
But the Maine Coons, I saw a photo of one that looked like a sphinx.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are huge, and it's got the M, like Majin Buu.
Oh, Dragon Ball fans. Forehead. There we go.
He's still playing the Dragon Ball.
Every day, man.
My man.
Yeah.
But definitely an amazing animal, a very sacred animal within Ifa. Babalawo, was initiated in Orisha as well. The cat, and all the old African cultures had a very regal position. I mean, even if you look at in Egypt how they viewed him as the guardian between this world and the next, and just beautiful mythology there. But Ojuani Meji speaks of it heavily.
Nice. In
this Odu of Ojuani Meji, so many pataquis, so much literature. There is another story that speaks of a land, and the land was going through famine, epidemic, Sodom and Gomorrah, right?
Okay.
And they wanted to perform divination to see how they were going to be able to overcome this period. And they lived near the ocean. The city or the tribe, clan, what have you, lived near the beach. And when divination was performed with Ojuani Meji, they were instructed to perform sacrifice to the deity Olokun. And when they did, this person came out of the ocean. And he was covered in seaweed, and, he almost looked like Aquaman type thing. And they started interacting with him, and, he was asked on different topics, like how to resolve things. And he started providing advice that miraculously started affecting everything positively, where all the negativity started dispelling. And little by little, they gained more confidence in him, and they actually chose to make him king. Some people would interpret it was actually Babaluaye once again, as the son of Olokun. Other people say he really didn't have a determination as far as a name. Yeah. But he came covered. That's the real big distinction in this story, is he kind of came out like like Aquaman, I would imagine. So this 𝗏𝗲 speaks of the importance of the Orisha Olokun as well, aligning with the ocean. It's a very huge concept here. And then, apart from that, 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍 makes an appearance as well. This 𝗏𝗲 speaks of situations where certain things may have become stagnant. Whether it's we're not feeling well or, we are experiencing economic hurdles, any of those things. 𝗃𝗏 speaks of the importance of performing divination, identifying what we need to do to get things back on track, because Ojuani Meji is meant to be a very prosperous 𝗏𝗲. It's somebody that is meant to kind of ride a high wave in life. This is also one of the 𝗏𝗲s where palm wine was first manufactured and sold. And the first, impresario or entrepreneur that took hold of that business, they say, was Shango. And similar concepts can be found in 𝗏𝗲s like 𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗁, 𝗵𝗏𝗋𝗋 Meji. But this 𝗏𝗲 speaks of entrepreneurship and the importance of whether we have a 9-to-5 established career, to always find a way to establish something auxiliary to be able to complement that and possibly become residual, because it's an 𝗏𝗲 where it speaks of a lot of prosperity and a lot of commerce. So this pataki kind of touches on all those things as well. Okay. Ojuani Meji. In this 𝗏𝗲, it speaks of a story about a gentleman named 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍. And he was living in torment because every night he would notice dead people in his house. He would see spiritualities or shadows out of his peripheral, and it really disturbed him because he wasn't able to get any rest. He wasn't sure why this was happening. He was a babalawo, so he thought his house was pretty spiritually safeguarded, but he was unable to understand why any of this was occurring. So he decided to get divination with another group of awos. And when he did, the 𝗏𝗲 about Ojuani Meji was revealed, where 𝗃𝗏 said that this was a result of witchcraft and curses that other people who were envious of him were sending to him. They were actually sending evil spirits to his house. So he had a pretty big dilemma. And the recommendation was to perform sacrifice to the deity 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏. And when he performed sacrifice to 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 asked 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍 for his flute, because he was actually a flutist. And 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 picked up the flute and said, let's go for a walk. And 𝘃𝗶𝗱 started playing the flute throughout the town, and all of the eguns, or all of the spirits, started following them. And what he did was he took them back to the cemetery where they were able to rest. So 𝘃𝗶𝗱 looked at 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍 or Ojuani Meji and said, whenever you have an issue like this, or issues in general, play the flute to me. So anybody that has this 𝗏𝗲, or even, somebody that possibly has 𝗃𝗶𝗱 𝗵𝗯𝒻𝒻 or 𝗵𝗯𝒻𝒻, it should have a flute next to it, because in this sign was where 𝗃𝗶𝗱 𝗵𝗯𝒻𝒻 became the king of the dead and would play the flute to be able to control egun. So very key points as far as effectiveness, because some people may say, hey, I'm not getting the results out of my 𝗃𝗶𝗱 that I ideally would want. And sometimes it's not that we're not asking with good intentions or in good form, or that our deities are mad at us. It's just sometimes they need certain implements or materials to be able to function at the highest capacity. And 𝗃𝗶𝗱 𝗵𝗯𝒻𝒻, ideally, when the person asks something from him, they should play an instrument, preferably the flute. Now, it doesn't have to be, this beautiful silver, professional one. You can get something symbolic, a recorder, I don't know, and play to him, and you'll usually get really great results. But this 𝗏𝗲 is beyond spiritual. It says that if the person is experiencing these kind of symptoms or phenomenon, they need to consult 𝗃𝗏, because they could be being victimized spiritually, or it could be disalignment with their own spiritualities that's causing them to become rambunctious and not allowing them to get rest or be able to function overall. And if the person does not have their 𝗃𝗶𝗱 icon, they desperately need it, because it was 𝗃𝗶𝗱 who allowed Ojuani Meji not only to find peace, but ascend to a position of regalness. Ojuani Meji after that became king once more, and it speaks of elements of music and all of those things. Very spiritual 𝗏𝗲 once again, because this is one of the 𝗏𝗲s, or the 𝗏𝗲, where Oshun started utilizing the mirror. Now, most people look at this and think that it's due to vanity or self-consciousness, There are versions of stories where that was the focus, but Oshun overall would actually use the mirror to divine. It's actually a form of mediumship and divination, right? That's why if you notice, in the brothers and sisters who practice mayombe, at the end of the mpanga, you'll see a mirror, right? And they use it to divine and whatnot. For anybody who's ever gotten a consultation with a tata or a yaya or a ganga, you'll see this. Why is that there? Now, the reason being is because the material that's used to make mirrors is mercury, and it has a very divine affiliation with energies that can flow back and forth between this side and the next, specifically Eshu. And in this Odu, Oshun would actually perform divination with the mirror. Now, this Odu speaks of the importance of being careful with this as well. You know, like concepts like the Ouija board, you know, fooling around spiritually with a mirror when you're not versed or having the wrong intentions, because it actually in this Odu was identified as a medium between this world and the next. So it's very important, you know, when interacting with divination tools that incorporate this or performing any of this type of divination, you're very prepared and have good intentions, because if not, negative things could come through. You know, the whole Bloody Mary concept. Because in this Odu, it speaks of when Oshun stared into the mirror and she started invoking certain things, and either she got sucked into the mirror spiritually or, you know, she lost her mind.
Dude, you know what my wife told me about these movies? She told me, and you could probably relate to it. They're telling us the truth. Yeah. Somewhat of the truth in all of these movies.
Yeah.
Like the reason why I brought it up, because, you know, The Ring or the movie Mirrors with Kiefer Sutherland.
The movie Ouija, man, that one messed me up.
The movie Ouija. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel you there.
No, yeah, I saw that movie one time. I never watched it again because I looked at certain elements of it. I went through like a horror movie phase, by the way. You know, I don't know. I'd never really delved into that genre, and I was like, man, this is some interesting stuff. Like, I think, what was the one that The Conjure? Is it?
Oh, The Conjuring.
Yeah, that one. Those messed me up for sure. But I don't know. Ouija just had elements that I was like, man, that could happen way too easily. So definitely be careful, you know, messing with things that, you know, because those are things that don't necessarily have a orientation. Like, for example, if you throw the chain of Ifa, being a babalawo, or throw the shell or the chamalongos or whatever, there's a spiritual, almost like barricade for the most part, if you're operating it correctly, where certain, you know, like low vibration spiritual or even demonic things really can't come through. But you look at something like a spiritual mass or like a Ouija board, where if you're not careful, it's just a free-for-all, like anything can come through, you know, that's when you got to be more careful, you know. And that's why, if you notice, Ojuani Meji doesn't specifically talk about this, but the concept's there. That's why we do the prayers at the beginning of the Misa to clean the air and attract the positive spirits or whatnot. Like, I've heard of people just starting the Misa, just sitting down and starting a spiritual mass, and you start hearing these horror stories of this person came down with a muerto oscuro, or, you know, this person this, or this person passed out, or all this nonsense. It's because we didn't take enough time to cleanse the air, which is the same concept why, you know, we do the moyuba every time. It's not that we love hearing ourselves speak. It's because, you know, we're trying to cleanse the air and only attract positive things. So.
Oh, wow.
Where are we at, Phil?
Well, I think it's. I was going to ask you, do you have any final thoughts on that? But that was actually a good point to change there.
Absolutely, man. Make sure you're prepared with what you're doing.
It's like saying grace right before you eat.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're just cleansing the air, and hopefully it might make the food taste even better. But this Odu has a lot of resounding information, a lot of great messages. For anybody that has it, you know, getting spiritually aligned, identifying that guardian Orisha, I think it's going to help quite a bit, but the person's meant to succeed. You know, it's all about learning how to maneuver in society, learning how to maneuver with others, and recognizing that we can't do things alone. And it's very important to maintain and build relationships rather than isolating unnecessarily.
Exactly. And relationships is a big thing that we all need to have. And one thing that we do have with relationships in our channel
man, the best.
Yeah. Our members.
Oh, we love you.
The best relationships ever. So this one I'm going to do differently, just a little bit differently here.
Okay.
So guys, what we're doing right now, we're going to show a spotlight to our members who join us. There's a little button under the video that says join. There's 3 separate tiers, all offering different perks, whether it's live shows, early releases, discounts on merch, all that jazz. So click on the button below, join, and then you can join our membership program.
Nice.
So I'm just going to show love to just the supporters.
Nice.
Here. Normally do VIPs and upper tiers, but this one, I'm just going to show love to some of the supporters, okay?
Love it, yeah.
So, all right. So here we go. We got Tara Mendoza.
Thank you.
And this one is 17 months.
Oh, OG.
Straight.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Going to show some new members here. We got Peterson Perez Sinatra.
Thank you. Love that one. Yeah.
All right. They've been a member for 1 week.
Very nice. Thank you for joining.
All right. We got Marietta Congo, brand new member.
Okay. Nice.
We
Congo.
got Anesia Jackson, brand new member.
Very nice.
All right. We got, let's go to some of the new members here. We got 𝗀𝗶𝗱𝗲.
Welcome.
Brand new member. We got Sandra Cruz, brand new member.
Awesome.
Queen Banks, 1 month, brand new member.
Blessings.
Tanisha Dillard, brand new member.
Awesome.
Anna Rodriguez, brand new member.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, sorry. Anna, 14 months. 14
Yeah, no,
months.
Anna, yeah, she's been in. Yeah, I was like, what?
Okay, and last but not least, let's go with Joe Main. So all these people have joined within the past month.
Guys, welcome. I mean, it makes so much sense. I mean, whether they paid or, sometimes in the lives, like some of these guys will be gifting like 5-10 memberships. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Just to see that support in that community. Welcome. We appreciate you sincerely. We hope you're getting all the value that you're looking for. If there are certain things that you want put into the membership portion of our channel, please let us know. Communicate with us. All we want to do is give you all that you want from this channel. So greatly appreciated, whether it be supporters, VIPs, etc. You guys are the best part of the channel. Couple closing thoughts, guys, before we go ahead and disconnect. BotanicaCandlesandMore.com is up and running for all of your service and product needs. We do ship. New Year is arriving at this point when it's released, or probably already here. Make sure you're getting your annual consultations. If that's your custom, spaces are still available. So let's see what this year is bringing. Lots of good stuff. If you can't catch us on YouTube on video, be sure to check us out on platforms like Apple, Spotify, where you can listen to the audio cast.
Yep, iHeartRadio, Alexa.
Yeah, all the different platforms. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, see the light.